I'm here.
All right. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We apologize for a little bit of a delay here. We encountered some technical difficulties, but I'd like to call to order the regular board meeting of the School Board of Directors of the Othello School District. Today, on June 22nd, 2020, we will begin with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Once again, I want to welcome everyone who is on this Zoom meeting tonight. I want to thank everyone who's taken the time. Full disclosure, hopefully our technical difficulties evade us or elude us tonight. Again, want to welcome every one of our guests tonight. I will entertain a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda.
I motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
I move that we ooh, that's really loud, that we haven't modified. I think that we need to take off the student reps because I didn't think that Jennifer Gar was going to be here. But if unless Elise is here with her, Lindsay is not able to participate. Lauren, sorry. And then we need to add to our board member discussion, salutatorian, valedictorian discussion. So with those modifications, I move that we approve it.
Okay, there's been a motion by Director Stevenson to approve the agenda with modifications of deleting student rep reports and the addition of valedictorian discussion under board member discussion. Can I get a second?
I will second that.
Okay, there's been a motion. Director Johnson, all in favor, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Moving on. Is there any public comment? Okay, there's no request for public comment. All right, and if we can refresh, if you've got the agenda out, those modifications have been made to the agenda. Okay, moving on.
Mike,
Yes.
you have some really bad feedback.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
You see, as soon as she talks, I can't hear her. Lindsay, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Say something.
Can you hear me, Mike? I can hear you.
Okay. But once I mute my computer, you got the echo back?
No, there's no echo right now.
Okay.
Chris muted, and I think that might have been it.
All right. Moving on, item B2, board member discussion. Do we have a legislative report, Director Stevenson?
Not at this time.
Okay. Our next bullet is a discussion about our board retreat. The good, the bad, the ugly opinions from the two new board members that joined us. I want to commend all of you, for all of us, for being able to finish that in one night. It was an arduous 4.5 hours, but I think we got a lot of work accomplished. We listened to a lot of stuff. I think, learned a lot about our community, their opinions, the staff, opinions from the staff to the superintendent, administrators to the superintendent, the community to board members. It was a very productive, I think, meeting. I want to thank you all for that. Don't know if there's any golden nuggets that anybody got from that they care to share tonight.
I thought it's always good to get feedback from the community and from the staff and everybody. I appreciate the people who took the survey and who gave feedback, whether it was positive or negative. We needed to hear it. And so, yeah, I thought it went really well.
I have a few things that we had jotted down. So some of my things were that we are going to now have a simple agenda emailed to the staff the day of our board meetings. And then following the meeting, we will have it shared on Facebook. The YouTube will be shared on Facebook without the ability to comment, but then we could all share that. And then we as a board need to have a communication, better communication, both with our community and with the staff. So we have a plan in place now that we decided upon, that we're going to do a monthly communication. We want to revamp the site visits, so that's our next discussion. We're not ready for that quite yet. And that we need to be better listeners of the silent majority. I think for a whole, we try to listen to, and we do listen to, the loud minority. There's a small group that make their opinions heard, and they do a great job at that, but that the silent majority is not being heard. And so I actually put a post out and asked some questions and got some awesome feedback, both on Facebook and a lot of private messages back and forth. And that turned into a lot of site visit discussions for me. But there was also some other ideas that we came up with as a board, that we want to have a Spanish only community forum where the board as a whole wears headsets. We also want to, so some of the other ideas about the silent majority that people came up with and shared with me was, we could go out and deliver food with the lunches and talk to people at those times. We need to make sure all of our correspondence and surveys and info are both in English and Spanish. We realized that we failed to do that for our community. That was a failure. I would say a big failure, that this survey wasn't even available in Spanish. And so those were some interesting things about the silent majority that I was able to come up with in just talking to some other people. So I felt like that was good.
All right. Yeah, no, I concur with you all. I think it was very productive. And it's just, we as a board need to, like you said, Jen, on the board site discussion that we did have, how we modify that, how we make that a little more inclusive, give staff a little more time, be more inclusive of all staff. So no, those are things that are on us to definitely try to perfect or try to make better for the betterment of ourselves and our constituents, everybody involved. So those are a little more open, more better, I guess, than what we've done in the past. Moving on, the board self-assessment. I want to thank everyone. Let us not forget through COVID there that we still need to do our, go ahead, Ann.
You jumped over the site visit discussion.
Oh, what I mentioned was that we needed to modify those. You're absolutely right. Don't know if anybody's got suggestions tonight already. Maybe you got suggestions, Ken or Jen. Very good. Very good. Very.
I would love to hear others. If anyone else has any other ideas, I don't have anything firm. These were some of the brainstorms that I would love to have more brainstorms. Invite teachers to meet, to maybe a possible meet and greet off campus. That might have to be in smaller groups, like twos, instead of the whole board. But the theory was, and some of this came from staff members, there were no repercussions if they talk against anyone and against an individual. Site visits with more time for staff. Hear teachers and not always the same ones. I was thinking about no admin at any kind, at the district level or at the school level, no admin in the room for teachers and staff to talk to us. each campus more than once a year. We heard that a couple of different times. I have a possible idea there. Classroom visits in smaller than 5 people so we can talk to the kids and interact. No scheduled class visits. We pick the classes, and possibly we have a list from admin as to classes that we cannot go into, or something like that, where we separate into very small groups, really more like 3, maybe 4 people at a time, and we just pick classes instead of, well, these teachers are very prepared for us. We could have a list of, the timing isn't going to work for this grade because they're in specials, or this teacher does not deal well with people just showing up in the classroom. I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that. I feel like so many times we're seeing the best teachers and they've spent all of this time preparing that one lesson that we might walk into. That's not what I want to see. I want to see the candid and those kinds of things personally. Subject or grade band teacher focused meetings that are not site specific. So that's a different idea. Instead of hitting still hitting every campus once a year, and then maybe talking to all the second grade teachers this month, all the SPED teachers and staff this month, all of the kitchen staff this month, or something along those lines. Maybe we can have the questions from staff pre-submitted before a site visit. Sometimes that, in some campuses, that takes a while to get going. Some campuses, we just run out of time because they're very open to discussing things with us. Maybe even having small group discussions with teachers at site visits instead of all 5 of us and all of them. They might be more prone to share. Some people just won't talk. They won't talk in a large setting like that, even though they're teachers and staff, but they would be more comfortable in smaller settings. Not just getting the reports from the admin at that site, but talking to the staff and finding out what is your reality at the site visits. These are some of the comments from some of the comments from the surveys. Diversify how we receive information from schools in the community. Maybe we need to do ways to get to know us as board members so that the staff can get to know us, and then they might be more willing to share. So many times I have people come up to me and say, I know you, so I'm going to tell you these things. How many people do we not know that maybe we need to hear from? And another idea from the comments was attend school staff meetings. I'm not sure the administration would be happy with that. But so if we did like grade band or subject discussions, that might be another way, instead of hitting every campus, still hitting every campus once a year, but then having it so that it's just a different way. Does anybody else have anything? Any other ideas?
I don't think you left room for any other of the community ideas we were all going to bring up, Jen. You covered them all.
And there's a few I agreed with you, Jen. You mentioned at the site visits that it be board members only. This is called a board site visit, and it is for the board. And true, sometimes some people will not speak their opinion or not speak at all because they feel intimidated sometimes. The only issue we run into sometimes with that is sometimes it gets operational. And there is some of those questions that we can't answer, but we can always bring those questions back to our administration so they can answer them. I don't know how to approach that one completely. I do believe that we as a board should have some of that time. It seems like when we do get there and we finally get our 15 minutes and we just finally start to get going, and then we're out of our time really quick. One of the suggestions I had was possibly on Monday mornings when they have late start, but that's going to have to take the approval of several other organizations in order to look at that. that would be a possibility to give us some more time in front of the staff during these site visits. And communications, that was one of the big things too that we need to work on with our staff as a board, is communications. I think that's something that we could do as individual board members. And I know I've tried to do this last year, is try to get to the individual schools myself and find time to, during lunch, and go sit down with the students during lunch and visit them and have a chance to talk. And it was great. I had a chance to talk to students, but it's sometimes harder to get engaged with some of the staff on those conversations and stuff too, because of the short time. But I did have some interesting ones in the past, but I think there was only one school that I did not get around to go visit individually before our school year ended last year.
Something we need to keep in mind, Jen, like when you say no admin there, if there's a quorum, it has to be announced as an open public meeting, therefore open to everyone. So it'd be kind of hard to say you can't come. So again, people think that these are things that we make up and you just don't want us there, things of that nature, but there's rules, there's laws against these types of things. So just food for thought. I mean, I'm loving, these are great ideas, and Lindsay's unmuted and I think she's got a bunch to bring to the table as well.
No, I just, I second Jen and Ken and you, Mike. I agree. Revisiting our site visit, I want more time with teachers, just like the teachers asked of us. I too feel that need. And the communication piece was a big one. I'm looking forward to this new opportunity we will have to work with the new communications director and be able to make a wider impact, hopefully, to reach the community and the people who work at the district, so that they can feel like they're more in the loop of what's happening. So yeah.
Very good. Any other
Sharon?
comment?
I think you did a very good job at creating programs for next year for us to look at for site visits. We'll just have to see what we can do with our phase 3.
Yeah.
Again, that unfortunately needs to be in the back of our minds, so it's a little clearer. Go ahead, Jen.
I think maybe if we put this on the agenda for our second meeting in July, again, just to have a site visit discussion, then we'll kind of know where we're at by then. I mean, school will be a month away. We'll be able to make some plans and start something, I think, hopefully, and maybe solidify what our plan is. And still be able to ask other community members and stuff, different ideas, and staff and all kinds of things.
Very good. Very good point. Well taken. Talia is making a note of that to remind ourselves. Second meeting in July to rehash this. And if there's any more ideas brought to us by then, or if this is any clearer to where we can crystallize our first site agenda and to see what that looks like. And even after that one, if modifications need to be made to it, it's about perfecting it as we go if needed. Thank you all very much for that great discussion. Thank you for doing our board self-assessments. We have committed to keeping ourselves in check and grading our meetings and making sure that we are taking note of the things that we're doing right, the things that need improvement, and things of that nature. And the final bullet on board member discussion tonight. Earlier today, we held an appeal hearing on the subject of the valedictorian salutatorian. So I want to have a discussion tonight amongst us here in public and render a decision as to what we feel needs to happen tonight. So whoever feels free to chime in, please do so.
I'll go first. I met with the Simpsons. I met with Dr. Hirsch, tried to get an overall idea of and Dr. Hurst did the math for me on the whiteboard, trying to get an overall idea of how this happened and make it make sense to me. At the end of it, every way that the math worked out for me, I felt that Lane Simpson worked really, really hard, and that did end up counting against her in the long run because she took some extra classes. I'm curious, Mike, do we go to vote at this during this meeting right now? Like, is this all happening in the public meeting?
Yeah, if we could refrain from names and doing that, but I do think we do need to have a decision, render a decision here. So suggestions as to what we do here, I think needs to happen at this meeting. Go ahead, Ken.
Are you finished, Lindsay?
For now, yeah. Go ahead.
Listening to him, there was a lot of hard work put in by these individuals, a lot of individuals. And as you know, we actually had 3 students that come through with perfect grades, 4.0s. And I don't think we should diminish any of our students for their hard work. They worked hard for their time through this. And fortunately, all the conditions that come together this year with these weighted measure scores and everything else, I won't say it punished a student. I believe it found a small flaw in the system that we have that I think we need to take a look at in the future, so this doesn't happen again. And that's the part I really think we need to look at, as in for what we should do this year. Maybe we should have, of course, our valedictorian stood out. There was no question about that. But maybe we should have a dual salutatorian and put the 2 students in the salutatorian spot. And then from this year, go on and really take a good look at that system to see if it can be improved, or so we don't run against this particular situation again, that we have a student that has worked super hard through their whole career, took all the extra courses, and then come out to find out that because she did take some extra classes there or open hour, that it actually in the overall end hurt her score. And I don't think that's the message that we want to send out to the rest of our students either. We wanted to encourage them to keep on working hard and do everything they possibly can, even all those extra credits. That's that much more education that student had. But some students also have the goal that they want to be the top of their class, and that in this case, I think that's what it was, and they did everything they possibly could to try to achieve that goal. But in the end, it just set it back a little bit further. So that's kind of where I feel right now, is sharing the salutatorian spot with a couple individuals.
I totally agree with you, Ken, about what we should do this year with the sharing of the salutatorian, and in moving forward for next year. And really going over what that means to students, because I know of freshman students whose goal it is to be valedictorian, and they feel very unclear about the path forward in getting there, because the policies aren't clear. They can be, just like we were told today, they can be interpreted in many different ways. And so that needs to be very clearly drawn out in the policy. And also a freshman student that expressed to me that she really is shooting for valedictorian is planning on doing running start. And so to her understanding, the policy does not clearly tell the running start students where they stand moving forward. So in reviewing the policy, I think we should be sending the message to our students to shoot for the stars. I mean, go for it and you'll be rewarded accordingly. But you should take as many hard classes as you can and be rewarded for your hard work. And so I would like to see moving forward the policy also be very clear about running start students, where they stand and how they can also achieve their dream and their goal of being valedictorian.
Okay, so I believe I concur with the work done by all of our kids. In this particular instance, I think a co-salutatorian resolution, I think, is fair. I think is merited. I think the people in the know of the policy are hearing where we're wanting to go with this. I think not rewarding extra hard work is not the message of the district at all. I think we as parents commend our kids when they go above and beyond and do more than what's expected from them. And this is a complex situation, trying to understand both sides, because the math is the math, is what we were told. I don't know if the formula is what needs tweaked. The classes included in the formula, there's just something needs to be modified, I believe, or tailored to where this situation doesn't happen again. So I think I hear from 3 board members that a co-salutatorian is merited. I don't know what where Jen and Sharon are in this, if you care to chime in.
Sharon, do you want to go first?
Oh, okay. I was going to let you. I have no problem with the valedictorian and 2 salutatorians, or possibly 3 valedictorians sharing a spot, because all 4 had 4.0s, that we really look into the policy and make sure it's more black and white, so that everyone, parents, students, staff, all understand and are able to discuss this and come up with goals. So I can go with either way.
I agree with co-salutatorian. And there are a few little nuances, like the WAC said to 0.2 decimal places, and the handbook says to 0.3 decimal places. I think 0.4 decimal places was used. So there are small little nuances. There are some parts that I felt like were clear, even though a specific class was not discussed. It was honors classes and AP and college credit classes. I would like to say and see, even though music classes are not denoted as an honors class, in terms of when you take the class, there are music classes that you cannot get into unless you're honors or so even though they don't have an honors in front of it, it's an honors class. I know that I've been told that next year there's going to be an AP art class as well. And so maybe exploring those ideas. I'm not saying that has to be done. And I think that if there's a committee that's put together to rework that policy, Lindsay I'm volunteering Lindsay with her ability to back out. But Lindsay had said to me that she would like to rework that policy anyways, even though it's not technically a policy. It is anyways. Maybe putting a few people together on a committee, because we do have our policies state that it has to be students and staff and community members and those kinds of things to do something like that. I don't think it would be a bad idea for a board member to be on that as well. And Lindsay always has the ability to say no.
No, I'm in for that. I'm in for that.
So just to slightly tweak and update whether it's including class lists or not, and just saying, however, maybe those things could be discussed.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm no expert in the education field. I just want to say, to your point, Jen, these 0-hour band classes that these kids are taking, you have to audition to get in. I mean, you have to be cream of the crop to make it into these band ensembles or whatever they are considered. Anyway, so they should get some sort of credit for that, in my opinion.
All right, just one clarification. This would be a district policy. So if Lindsay gets cordially invited by the district to bring her apportation to the discussion, I don't think it'll be neglected. Again, the assumption or the stereotype that everything is based on what the 5 people around this, the board members decide everything. No, but no. Having heard what I've heard tonight, I would like to inform Dr. Hurst to inform the parties upon hearing the appeal that we would like to award co-salutatorian to the individual in question as soon as they can hear about it. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. Great discussion. Moving on to item C1, I will entertain a motion to approve required approvals.
I move we approve the required approvals.
Okay, there's been a motion by Director Stevenson to approve required approvals. Can I get a second?
I second.
There's been a second by Director Prowse. So the motion is to approve required approvals. Motion by Director Stevenson, seconded by Director Prowse. All in favor, aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item C2, superintendent informational items. Don't know if we have any questions on the documents there, or if, Chris, you have anything that you want to discuss?
Absolutely. Just want to bring to everyone's attention, there's 2 reports in this section. One is just for information for the board and for the public. And it's really designed to share with everyone all of the administrators across the state, or mostly all administrators. It has a breakdown of salaries. So that's just available for the public to view. Another report that we put in was Washington State Superintendent salary comparisons 1920. Again, this is taken directly out of that report, the Sears report, and we provided that also for the board. One of the things we wanted to share with you is just an update of where we are with the planning phase for fall reentry. If the board would permit and allow, there is about a 10-minute video that I would like to share with the board. I think it will answer a lot of the questions that we have. One is, where is this coming from? Who is making this decision about kids coming back and adults coming back?
Is there any objection to watching the video, guys? Proceed, Chris.
Hey everybody, this is State Superintendent Public Instruction Chris Rakedon. Thank you for tuning back into our video series.
Could you guys hear that, Lindsay, at all? Okay. That's why the pre-disclosure on the technical difficulty. We're going to get it.
Hey everybody, this is State Superintendent of Public Instruction Chris Rakedahl. Thank you for tuning back into our video series. Last week we talked a lot about school reopening guidance, both for summer and fall, and wanted
No
to make
sound for us.
So what I will do is I'm going to just go ahead and move forward. And if it's corrected, then that's great. So what I will share with you, this is our State Superintendent, Chris Rakedahl.
Hey everybody, this is
actually on Facebook. We also just put it on our webpage as well. And he speaks about 5 different bullet points. One of the first things he speaks about is this question about, can all kids come back to school at one time? And he says in there emphatically that cannot happen. And he says one of the things that's really guiding this decision is the Department of Health. And he goes in and he speaks specifically about this 6-foot rule. So one of the things that the Department of Health has been very clear about is that, yes, we want kids and adults to come back. However, it must be done safely. And they put this very strict guideline across all schools, all districts across the state of Washington, and that is the 6-foot rule. So that's based on social distancing. So what you see superintendents and districts really planning around is, how do you configure a classroom so that kids are sitting 6 feet apart from one another? And there's some flexibility. So when kids are seated, that doesn't mean that at every single point that they're in the classroom that they have to maintain 6 feet distance. No, they can get up, they can sharpen a pencil, they can get materials, teachers can walk down the aisles, so on and so forth. However, students being 6 foot apart, that is the rule that they're sharing for every superintendent. So what that means, when you look at this video, it's very clear that yes, we want kids to come back. Yes, we want adults to come back, but you have to do it within this guideline, which is the 6-foot rule. So when you listen to the video, you hear him say, that means that nearly all of our districts across the state is going to have to look at some sort of configuration where it's not just all kids coming back at one time or all adults coming back at one time. So if you think back to our planning, what we've done, it goes back to, yes, we want kids to come back. We have to manage that social distancing 6-foot rule guideline. So we are, as a district, for Othello School District, we're going to have to look at some sort of blended model. So what we wanted to do is share with you, Chris does a really nice job of talking about that. He also talks about the cloth mask. So every student, an adult, will have to have a mask. That is the expectation and is mandated. He also talks about, in some instances, there will be face shields that we can consider as well. And there's a whole list of other things that the Department of Health puts out around cleaning guidelines and things of that nature. But he talks about busing as well and how that's going to affect us and how kids can get on the bus and we can have that at capacity. But there's certain things that we have to take in consideration, like making sure that they're wearing their mask, making sure the windows are down as much as possible as well. And I share that with you because I was asked a question specifically by a board member about who's making these decisions. Is it the superintendent? Is it the board? Or is it OSPI or the governor? And really, I share with that board member that that decision has been removed from every district's hands, and it really lies with the Department of Health. And if we can all just remember that 6-foot rule, that's what's guiding the return of every single student and every single adult back to all schools. And the superintendents and districts will have to look at their spaces available to see how they can configure those classrooms to make it work. There are some models.
Superintendent of Public Instruction, Chris Rakedahl.
If I take a 938
thank you
foot
for tuning
square
back
foot
into our video
classroom,
series.
then I can
Last week we
project
talked a lot about school reopening guidance, both for summer and
get
fall,
about
and
23
wanted to make the
students
commitment
in
then
that
and
classroom.
following.
But what's not taken into consideration is the teacher workstation and other materials that's in the classroom. So in reality, that may end up being about 14 or even fewer students. So that's why I say every school district is going to have to plan around their space and that 6-foot rule. So if you can all remember, and if our public and community can remember, the 6-foot rule is the guideline that's driving a lot of these decisions. That's okay. Yeah. What I also wanted to share with you is there's another document that says re-entry planning. I just wanted to remind our board that we had already started planning this. We were waiting for this guidance to come down from OSPI. And if you go down a few slides, one more. Just a reminder, this is what we had shared with the board prior to us receiving the guidance, that we were looking at either a traditional model where we want our kids to come back face-to-face, a blended model, an online model. What I will share with you is that if you go up one, if you can click the link that says, go up a little bit more. Right there, a list of questions, right there. And we shared this with the board before as well, but there's so much content, so much to read. As you think about our district, and if you think about our work groups, what we're doing for our planning, this is a list of questions. This is not even all of them that we have to consider when we're opening. What we're doing is first, we provided a timeline. I did meet with a board member, and they did ask specifically if we can give the public a timeline of when we would have our draft of a plan to the board and our final plan to the board. So here's what's happening. As you know, we have a community survey that's out. We took that or sent that out to our parents and also to our staff. That survey will close this Friday, and then there'll be an opportunity to analyze those survey results. I'll just share with you that we've had about 560 responses to date, so a lot of feedback provided to us. We have that survey in Spanish as well as English as well. When you look at the percentage of people who have taken the survey, about 50% have been parents, and about 45% of that has been staff who has taken the survey. And then you have about 5% that represents other pieces of the community as well. There's two questions that I'll just kind of share with you that kind of stood out for me. One, you can see, obviously, there's a lot of support for if we can't bring back all students. That was one of the questions. What would our community prefer? So right now, the big support is coming from the blended learning model. About 64% of our respondents are saying they would support the blended learning model, which is half in person, the traditional model, and then half online. And 20% oppose the blended model. And then there's another almost 20% that is neutral on that. When it comes to the online model, there's 41% that oppose that model and about 41% that supports the model. So it's about half and half. We still have this whole week to receive feedback. So I just wanted to share with you kind of where we are right now. But there's a list of questions. Even if you've taken that survey yourself, you'll see that there's a lot of questions. I will have to analyze it. And I saw all the responses as well. There's a ton of responses that we have to sift through and be able to analyze and provide that for the board as well. There'll be opportunities between now and the time we present to the board, July 13th, our first draft. There may be some opportunities for us to send out another survey just to refine some of the responses. You also see that there'll be some focus group meetings that's going to be happening between now and the 13th. Our plan is to present a draft of our plan, our reentry plan for the fall, to the board, the first board meeting in July, so July the 13th. And again, that'll be a draft. And then our plan is to present the final plan to the board on the second board meeting in July, which is July the 27th. We also wanted to share with the board that there has been and will continue to be a lot of planning that's taking place with all of our leaders, but also some community members as well. Again, I've already shared with you how we're reaching out to our community through the survey. We have standing meetings that's happening with our administrators across the district, from our administrator meetings. We have our pre-cabinet meetings, which is really Pete, Sandra, and Jeanette. And we also have Jennifer and John as well. Sorry about that. I had a little mishap. So they're part of those pre-cabinet meetings, and they're having those conversations on a weekly basis. We've also invited OEA and PSE to those meetings, so we can have those meetings with them on a bi-weekly basis. And then also, we're reaching out to the Department of Health, specifically Karen Potts, who works with the Department of Health locally, just so we can receive her input and feedback as we move along in the process. So we're really trying to use a collaborative approach to bring all parties to the table and get feedback from everyone. And as I shared, the goal is to present the draft of the plan on July the 13th and then the final plan on July 27th. Any questions from the board about our process and the work we're doing?
I'll ask this question just because it was posed to me.
Yes.
Is this, who formulated the survey that went to the community? Is this an OSPI or did we put this together?
No, we actually put this together, Mike. It wasn't from OSPI.
My question is,
questions. I just have a lot of concerns moving forward. I see a lot of challenges moving forward. I'll just start off with one of the first one, and it's the blending model. Half in class and half back to online. And one of the biggest challenges we have is being able to make sure all of our students are Wi-Fi capable. And that's one of the biggest challenges I think that we have on that model. But that's one of the things, many things on your plate. And as kids do start to come back to school, there's going to be as you know, I don't want teachers to become the babysitters in the classroom or they're going to be dealing with trying to keep kids 6 foot apart constantly or keep their face mask on. So we're going to have a lot of issues that are going to have to work through. And I could see a lot of issues that will arise and come up, and hopefully good solutions will come out of the planning and everything else, so we could address all these real issues I think that we're looking at to proceed with getting our kids back in school.
I'll say, Ken, I agree with you that these are certainly real issues. They're tough issues. Not only are we dealing with these issues, but everyone else across the state of Washington. I think connectivity, as you shared, is a big concern. I think as you look at a lot of those questions, those are some really tough questions that we have to struggle with, how to figure that out. I think when you look at the survey, which is why we're trying to get the feedback from the community, there are specific questions that deal with that, and there's questions that deal with packets of information, as we have done before. And right now, when you look at the data, it's kind of split around, okay, we can support packets, or we can support this. I think at the end of the day, we'll have to look at all of the information that we're receiving and plan accordingly and really deal with those hard issues, as you said. But we understand that they're very tough issues that we have to deal with. And I know all of us, especially our teachers and our staff and our administrators, they want the best for our students. I remember when we started this back in the spring, and we were kind of scrambling to get this off the ground. And I mean, it was kind of what it was, but we don't want that going back into the fall. We want a better educational program for our students. I think all of us wants that. So
I think it's, both of you had great things to say, and I think another big issue is childcare for those that work, and getting this figured out by July 27th will give parents a lot more time to try to find out how they're going to have childcare if they work. Even teaching staff is going to have a little bit harder time. So
My concern is having older children on an A-B schedule and younger children on an A-M schedule. I think that will be a hardship on families for those that have older children and younger children. I think that district-wide, it needs to either be A-B days or AM, PM. I'm not sure how that would work out for the district, but that's my concerns.
Like I say, I know the planning teams and Pete's on here. I'm sure that there's a rationale for AB for the higher end and then the half days for the elementary. But we could either share that now or we can share it during the draft and kind of get into details about that. I'm not sure if the board wants to know any of that right now.
I don't know if we really need to go into it right now, but the only thing I'd really have to say is the biggest part in this whole thing is going to be communication with our parents and the ones affected with this. They're going to have to be right along every step along with the way with this planning, because they're going to be the greatest ones that are impacted by this. And we need to get them to work along with this in order to work it out properly. So that's the only thing I could really say is, as we are going along making some of these decisions what to do, I think we need to get it out there as soon as possible to our parents and staff so they could start to prepare themselves also along the way. As Sharon said, there's child care issues if there's split schedules. I know we'll probably still have kids coming home to an empty home because unfortunately, we are a very low-income county, and it takes both parents to work. So, and that's something that the parents will have to work along with issues, and that's something that we're going to have to look at as a district too, with some of those issues, because we want to keep the kids safe as well, going and coming to school and in school.
I certainly agree that communication is a big piece. And I do know that our new director of communication is actually listening to this board meeting. So I'm sure that the individual is taking notes. And we've talked about this briefly in our executive cabinet, the importance of at key times that we're communicating about the reentry. So we understand the importance of that piece as well.
Very good. Well, I appreciate the update there, Dr. Hurst. And again, I know this is forefront, the entire team. Like Candace pointed out, communication is going to be, and with the knowledge that, miracle and all of a sudden, in phase 4, all these plans would be obsolete and everything back to normal. I mean, that would be an ideal world. I don't think that will happen, but, wishful thinking is always there. But yes, communicating with our parents, with the community, and if there's community members listening, or when you see this on YouTube and you've seen the survey and think my vote or my opinion doesn't carry, please take the time to fill it out and give us more information as to where we stand as a district or what your thoughts are. There's an opportunity for you to comment, things of that nature. So let's take advantage of that opportunity. Okay, thank you for that, Chris. Moving on, item CP, we have the preliminary budget. Don't know if there are any questions at this time, or Jeanette, that's something that you're going to share with us.
We were going to ask, did the board have questions, or would you like an overview? Can you bring up?
Do you have an overview ready? Do you have something prepared? I realize this is preliminary and things are going to change, but I don't know if you have any points that you'd like to point out.
So obviously the timeline is on page 3, so that's a pretty important piece, just so the board is aware of the timeline and the deadlines that we have.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. So page 3, there is a timeline. So that's important information for the board to be aware of the deadlines that are coming up that we'll be passing through in the coming weeks and months. So that's, I guess, a slide to pay attention to. Slides or pages 5 through 8 are the other funds for your budgets. And so those are included. And then the general fund, there's a lot of information. I would, I guess, defer to the board if there's any questions specifically, or if you'd like more information on a specific thing. That would probably be more useful instead of me going through 10 slides of information if you guys don't have any questions.
So Jeanette, the July 10th date, it's preliminary budget available. Is that also the same date that we have to have it into our ESD?
Yes.
Jeanette, I have a question about, can you go to the transportation page? Can you hear me?
Yes. So slide 5.
Okay.
Down.
Not sure what slide that is, to be honest.
Oh, no, up. That one. Right.
And I'm totally giving this to you on the fly. So if you don't have the answer or you need to take a little bit more time, I know that we purchase 2 school buses, basically 2 new buses every year. I had been told at one point, and I'm not quite sure if this is completely correct, that all of our expenses for our district for transportation come and are reimbursed 100% from the state.
That is not correct. So,
okay.
Well, it is correct in some way. So this projection here is literally just for the purchase of yellow school buses. So this 4-year budget is just for the purchase and replenishment of our yellow school bus fleet. So the way this fund works is we buy a yellow school bus to transport kids. And then that basically, the value of that bus is returned to us over a number of years. I believe it's 13 years. And so we receive that money back from the state from that purchase. So that's the way this fund works. And that's why we're able to buy buses and have more updated, I don't want to say updated buses, but buses that have fewer miles that have hopefully less maintenance required. So that's the purpose of this fund. And this fund is funded by the state. So that is basically replenished over time.
Okay.
The other side of transportation is actually transporting kids to and from school. And so the state does pay us for that. There is basically 2 sides of the formula. It's a lesser than formula, essentially like the levy formula. So basically, the state has a really long, complex formula that looks at our routes and how many kids we have riding on buses. And if we spend less than whatever that formula says in the prior school year, then that's the amount of revenue that we receive from the state. But if we spend, more than the state formula, then the district has to pay basically the extra above the formula. Does that make sense?
Yes. So in the past, have we been over consistently, under, or right about wash?
So we've been under And that formula changed just within the last several years. And so districts are still kind of getting used to that. And of course, with COVID, as a lot of things did, that formula changed. And so next year, we will be receiving the same amount that what they're telling us is that we'll be receiving the same amount that we received last year, or in 1920, in 2021. So normally there would be, an inflationary increase, slightly at least, but from what they're telling us is just a plan for next year, what you have this year. So that's kind of the way it works. It's obviously more complicated than that, but the district is increasing the expenditures slowly, just with time. Some of our buses need more maintenance and things like that. Like this year, we had to replace an engine. And so, that's a good chunk of change, and things like that will increase your expenses that may or may not get reimbursed from the state, depending on your formula.
Wonderful. Thank you.
It was probably way more information than you wanted.
No, that was exactly what if you wouldn't have given me that info, I would have kept asking to get to that. That's perfect. Thanks.
Jeanette, one of the questions I had was on the preliminary budget you had down the 10th of July. That's when our budget is actually due to the ESD, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Jeanette, is the budget due by the 10th of July to the ESD also? And that's the full budget?
Yes, can you guys hear me? Okay. So yes, the budget is due to the ESD by the 10th of July. Any more budget questions?
I think we're good. Appreciate the information, and I'm sure if there's any more clarifications, we know how to get over you. So appreciate the information. Thank you. All right, moving on. Item D1, assurance of organization performance. We have under item D1, the annual summit of evaluation of the superintendent document that we referenced in evaluating Dr. Hurst, superintendent this year. I do need a motion to approve the annual evaluation, the annual summit evaluation of the superintendent.
I move that we approve the annual summative evaluation. And can we have Ken or Mike mute, because we're getting big echoes?
Can you still hear me there, Jen? Okay, so we have a motion by Director Stevenson to approve the annual summative evaluation of superintendent. Can I get a second?
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Stevenson to approve the annual summative evaluation, second by Director Johnson. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item D2 is the updated contract for the superintendent. I will entertain a motion for its approval.
Did we lose Lindsay off of the call?
Come again?
I think we lost Lindsay off the call. Do we still have
No,
Lindsay?
I'm here.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
oh, I was flipping through the photos. I didn't find you.
Oh yeah, no, I'm here.
Okay. I move we approve the superintendent's contract.
We have a motion by Director Stevenson to approve a contract for the superintendent. Can I get a second?
I second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussions? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
I have a question about, so since the superintendent contract needs all of our signatures, do we just need to drop by the district office and sign?
We can come to Talia and sign the contract. Or she can come to us.
Great.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on. Something's on here. If I mute, then I can hear me in the echo here. Item E1 under policy review. EL17 is an equity policy that Director Stevenson put together. There are some modifications. They are in red. I hope we have a chance to read those, and wondering if we're ready to move on. Thank you for that, Ed. Although this says first reading, I'd like to motion that we approve EL17 with the corrections that are on there, and have it at the next meeting as a final reading. Can I get a second to that motion?
I second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve EL at the next board meeting as the final reading. Any discussion? All in favor of aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you for that, Jen. Item 1, we will take, my watch says 8:14, a 3-minute recess, and we will go into executive session for 30 minutes for the purpose of discussing potential litigation pursuant to RCW 4230.110 1I. No action will be taken following the executive session. So we will recess for 3 minutes and reconvene on the executive session meeting link at 8:17.